In Los Angeles, the city of dreams and shadows, a man named Liam found himself entangled in a web of deceit, a tragedy disguised as fate. Liam, a gentle soul, had always yearned for a simple, happy family life. He wasn't one for ambition or fame, content with a quiet existence beside Lily, the wife he adored. But cruel destiny snatched that fleeting happiness away. Just 3 days prior, Lily had perished in a mysterious car accident, a fatal collision that claimed her life instantly, leaving no time for a final farewell. Liam's world shattered. He couldn't fathom that the woman who had laughed beside him yesterday was now cold beneath a tombstone. The air at Lily's funeral was heavy with unspoken grief. Liam felt the unusual stares of those around him. The housekeepers whispered, relatives murmured, but the strangest of all was the demeanor of Mrs. Harrison, his mother-in-law. She shed no tears, showed no pain, unlike a mother who had just lost her daughter. She stood silently, her face contemplative, her eyes sharp, as if lost in thought. She offered no comfort, spoke no words about Lily. A sense of unease gnawed at Liam's heart. After the funeral, everyone urged him to leave the mansion, to escape the painful memories. But Liam couldn't. He couldn't leave without saying goodbye to Mrs. Harrison, a woman who had also lost a child. He entered her study, intending to express his gratitude and bid farewell, but she wasn't there. While waiting, Liam unconsciously tidied the room. He was a meticulous man, averse to clutter. But this small act inadvertently opened a horrifying door to the past. As he pulled open a desk drawer, he froze. An old, faded photograph lay among a pile of papers. It was a picture of his birth parents, who had died years ago in a bankruptcy and debt-related suicide. But what truly choked Liam was the inscription on the back of the photo, "Never forgive." His hand trembled, his breath hitched. Why was this photo in his mother-in-law's study? And more importantly, what did that inscription mean? His parents had died in destitution, their family swindled out of everything, their careers ruined. But what if it was all a charade? What if they hadn't committed suicide but were murdered? Liam felt his body burn, his blood boiling with rage. He replayed every memory from the past, every small detail he had never noticed. His family had once been wealthy, but after a failed business deal, everything crumbled. His parents' business partners had caused them to lose everything, driving them to despair. Back then, he was just a boy, too young to understand. But now, seeing this photo, realizing his mother-in-law was connected to his parents' deaths, he couldn't let it go, but he couldn't act immediately. If Mrs. Harrison was truly involved in his parents' deaths, she wouldn't easily reveal her weaknesses. He needed a plan, a way to approach her, to make her drop her guard. And there was only one way: he had to marry her. Liam stared at the photo in his hand, a plan forming in his mind. He would seduce Mrs. Harrison, make her fall in love with him, make her trust him completely. Only when she was off guard could he access the secrets she hid. He knew Mrs. Harrison wasn't easily fooled. She was a strong, cold, and powerful woman. But she was also just a woman, a lonely woman. He had to make her yearn for him, make her feel he was her only support. From this day forward, he was no longer the Liam of old. He would play the role of a sophisticated, caring, and attentive man. He would utter sweet words, make tender gestures that would move her. He would do everything to ensnare her in his web of love, even though his heart held only resentment, even though every time he looked into her eyes, he wanted to scream with anger. But he would be patient. He would endure because he knew this wasn't just about avenging his parents, but also about avenging Lily, his beloved wife. He swore he would make Mrs. Harrison pay. From the day he discovered the photo of his birth parents in Mrs. Harrison's study, Liam was no longer the same man. Outwardly, he remained a man grieving his wife, quiet and withdrawn, his eyes perpetually filled with sorrow. But deep inside, a furious anger simmered, brewing a plan he never thought himself capable of. Mrs. Harrison, a powerful, intelligent, and unpredictable woman, if she was truly connected to his parents' deaths, if she truly hid a dark secret, then he would be the one to expose everything. But first, he needed to approach her, to make her trust him, to fall into the trap he had laid. Only then would he have a chance to uncover the truth. From that day on, Liam changed. He became more thoughtful, warmer, always there when Mrs. Harrison needed him. If she faced difficulties at work, he was ready to help. If she felt tired, he gently showed concern, poured her a warm cup of tea, and quietly stood by her whenever she needed someone to lean on. Initially, Mrs. Harrison seemed suspicious. "You don't have to concern yourself with me like this, Liam. I know you're hurting over Lily, but that doesn't mean you have to force yourself to do these things," she said, her voice steady, her eyes scrutinizing. Liam offered a faint, sad, and lonely smile. "I don't know what else to do, Mother. Lily is gone, and I have no one left. If I don't help you, I'm afraid I'll go insane." He lowered his head, deliberately letting his voice falter slightly. "These past few days, I've realized that I've not only lost a wife, but an entire family. I don't want you to be lonely, nor do I want to feel useless." These words caused Mrs. Harrison to fall silent. She didn't reply, simply reaching out to gently pat his shoulder. "Then stay. This mansion is quite cold." Liam knew she had begun to trust him. Slowly, Mrs. Harrison grew accustomed to his presence. At every meal, she would find Liam pulling out her chair, concerned about whether she had eaten enough. Every night, if she worked late, he would always be the one to bring her tea, gently telling her, "Mother, don't overwork yourself. I don't want you to collapse like Lily." These words carried weight, making Mrs. Harrison sometimes look up at him for a long time, as if assessing whether this man was truly sincere. But Liam knew that wasn't enough. Mrs. Harrison remained cautious. She was a seasoned woman, not easily deceived. He needed a strong push to make her completely drop her guard, to truly see him as a close confidant, a man with whom she could share unspoken sorrows. The opportunity arose late one night. Liam sat alone in the living room, a nearly empty bottle of wine in front of him. The dim light from the wall lamp cast shadows on his face, highlighting his deep, sorrowful eyes. Mrs. Harrison came down the stairs, her eyes questioning when she saw the scene before her. "What are you doing, Liam?" she asked, a hint of worry in her voice. Liam looked up, his eyes red from the wine and the intentionally displayed sorrow. He offered a bitter, heartbreaking smile. "Do you know, Mother?" he said, his voice low and hoarse. "I never thought Lily would leave me like this." He poured another glass of wine, his eyes blankly staring into space. "I thought I had a happy family, that I would build a home with her, but in a blink of an eye, everything vanished." Mrs. Harrison was silent. Liam gently shook his head, his voice dropping as if whispering to himself. "Do you know what it feels like to lose the most important person in your life?" Mrs. Harrison froze. It seemed those words touched a hidden corner within her, a pain she had never acknowledged. Liam seized the moment, his eyes softening with sincerity. He took her hand, his hand warm and steady. "You're just like me, aren't you? We are both lonely souls." He squeezed her hand gently, whispering like a plea, "Can you be my support?" Blind love can make people lose their minds. Liam knew this. He had witnessed Mrs. Harrison's transformation in the past few days. The powerful, cautious woman who always kept her distance from him now easily fell into his trap of love. Her gaze became softer, her unintentional touches held a hint of lingering affection, and her words, no matter how strong, couldn't hide the weakness within. And what he wanted finally came. One late afternoon, Mrs. Harrison looked at him, her eyes filled with emotion. "Liam, I know this might be unacceptable to many, but if you agree, I want us to be officially together." Liam wasn't surprised. He knew this day would come, but his heart still constricted when he heard those words. He offered a perfect, flawless smile. "You don't need to ask, Mother. I've always been here, and I always will be. Their wedding was quick, but devoid of blessings. The housekeepers whispered, relatives gossiped endlessly. What's wrong with Liam? How can he marry his own mother-in-law? Mrs. Harrison is too old. Why marry her? The whispers permeated the mansion like invisible knives, stabbing at Liam's self-esteem. But he didn't care. He had entered this game, and he wouldn't turn back. Before the ancestral altar of their family, Liam stood beside Mrs. Harrison. The priest slowly began, "Do you promise to be by each other's side forever, through trials and tribulations?" Liam clenched his hand, his eyes resting on Mrs. Harrison's face for a moment. He saw her eyes light up like a woman who had rediscovered lost youth. But his heart, it had long since died. "I do." Life after the marriage unfolded exactly as he had predicted. Mrs. Harrison completely trusted him, allowing him free access to her study, to old documents in the house. And that was when he began to investigate her past, starting with the housekeepers. One afternoon, while Mrs. Harrison was away on a business trip, Liam sought out Martha, the longtime housekeeper. She had lived there since Lily was a child, even longer than Liam had known the family. If anyone knew the truth about Mrs. Harrison's past, he had a clear intuition that it could unlock some secret Lily had tried to hide. His eyes darted around the room, then stopped at a small, locked wooden cabinet against the wall. Without hesitation, he inserted the key into the lock. His heart tightened as he heard a click. The wooden door gently opened, revealing a small, old box inside. It had probably been there for a very long time. Liam picked it up, his hand involuntarily trembling as he opened it. Inside was a diary. His fingers flipped open the first page. His breath caught in his throat when he saw Lily's familiar handwriting. The first few entries were nothing special, just trivial stories about her life, about her ordinary emotions. But the more he read, the more he felt something was amiss. "I've lived for 27 years without knowing the truth about myself." Liam's eyes widened. He continued to turn the pages. Every word seemed to scream at him, wanting to expose a horrifying truth. "I always believed she was my birth mother, but no. It was all just a perfect charade." His heart pounded in his chest, each beat heavy. "I am not Mrs. Harrison's daughter. I am someone else's child." Liam felt his mind reeling. He clutched the diary in his hand, almost disbelieving what he had just read. "She's not my birth mother. She's the one who killed my mother, killed my entire maternal grandfather's family to seize their assets." The words were like a hammer blow to Liam's mind, making him sink down, his hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He tried to take a deep breath to calm himself, but it felt as if the air around him suddenly thinned. Lily, the wife he loved most, the one he had once thought had a peaceful childhood in her mother's arms, turned out her entire life was a lie. He flipped through the diary, each word like a knife cutting into his heart. "I was too foolish to trust her, but now I know, and I won't let her continue to hide the truth." He closed his eyes, his hands trembling as he realized that it was because of this truth that Lily had been killed. "I need to find evidence, need to expose the truth. I can't let her continue to live freely after all she's done." Liam's throat constricted. He could imagine Lily sitting in this room, quietly writing these words with eyes full of sorrow. She knew. She had understood everything, and she had decided to stand up and try to expose that woman, but she didn't have time. "If anything happens to me, Liam, if you read this diary, please believe me. She killed my birth family. She might have killed me too." Liam's breath froze, his mind blank. His heart tightened as if someone was squeezing it. A cold sensation enveloped every muscle in his body. She killed Lily's entire family, and then she killed Lily herself. Liam didn't know how long he had sat there, only that when he looked up, his eyes no longer held their previous light. They were filled with darkness, like the boundless abyss of hatred. He looked around the room once more. This place was once where Lily lived, where she laughed, where she believed she had a complete family. And then Mrs. Harrison took everything away. A wave of fury surged, but he couldn't let his emotions take over. Liam took a deep breath, keeping himself from losing control. If he wanted to bring her down, he needed more than anger. He needed evidence, a plan, a way to make her completely collapse. He put the diary back into the wooden box, locked the drawer as before. When he stood up, his eyes had changed. Tonight, once again, he would enter Mrs. Harrison's study. Lily had left an important clue. The documents in the study might be the final key to unmasking the killer. She thought she had erased all traces, but she was wrong. Liam would make her pay. Liam began to feel a difference in how Mrs. Harrison treated him. If before she was gentle and trusting, now her eyes were sharper, more scrutinizing. Every time he left the room or went somewhere alone, she would casually ask where he was going, but her tone was no longer the same. Her vigilance grew more apparent, making him feel uneasy. And then all his suspicions became reality one night when he accidentally walked past the hallway and overheard a suspicious conversation from a dark corner. A strange man stood talking to Mrs. Harrison. The dim yellow light illuminated her face, highlighting her stern and calculating expression. "Follow him. I want to know his every move in this house. If he does anything unusual, report it to me immediately." Liam held his breath, his entire body stiffening. A cold sensation ran down his spine. Not only did she suspect him, but she also had him followed. His heart pounded. He had come too close to the truth. This meant he was in danger. That night, Liam tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The feeling of being watched made his entire body tense. He lay in bed, eyes half closed, but he still listened to every faint sound in the night. And then, just as he had predicted, his bedroom door creaked open. A soft sound echoed, almost imperceptible if he hadn't been concentrating. The very next second, a cold hand tightened around his throat. Liam's eyes flew open. The sensation of his breath being cut off was immediate. A shadowy figure, their face obscured, was pressing him down onto the bed, the grip so strong that his entire body was almost paralyzed. He struggled, trying to pull the hand away, but the harder he tried, the tighter the grip became. His vision blurred, air no longer entering his lungs. One more second and he would suffocate right there on his bed. But instinct surged in that suffocating moment. Liam reached for the bedside lamp, using all his strength to slam it directly into the attacker's head. A thud echoed. The figure staggered, the grip loosening for an instant. Liam immediately twisted, kicking hard at the attacker's chest, sending them sprawling onto the floor. The figure let out a faint groan, but hadn't given up. In the dim light, Liam managed to see a knife glinting in their hand. No time to think. Liam lunged off the bed, dodging the first knife strike, but the attacker quickly scrambled up, swinging the blade a second time, grazing his arm, leaving a bleeding streak. The pain stung, but Liam didn't care. He delivered a powerful kick to the attacker's leg, causing him to lose balance. Without giving them a chance to retaliate, he snatched the knife, turning the blade toward them, his voice low and menacing. "Who are you?" The assassin didn't reply, their eyes cold and unwavering. In the silent moment, a sound echoed from the hallway outside, the slow click of high heels on the floor. Mrs. Harrison. She stood right in front of the door, her demeanor chillingly calm. Her eyes were fixed on the scene in the room, yet she showed no surprise or alarm. She knew this would happen. "Are you all right?" Her voice rang out, devoid of any concern. Liam wiped the blood from his hand, his eyes never leaving her. "What do you think?" She offered a faint, bitter smile, slowly stepping into the room. Her cold eyes swept over the motionless assassin. "I didn't think you were so strong." Liam gritted his teeth. "You sent someone to kill me." Mrs. Harrison tilted her head, a fleeting hint of amusement in her expression. "Kill you? If I wanted to kill you, Do you think you'd still be standing here? Liam gripped the knife tighter, his chest heaving with rage. I know everything now. I know you killed Lily. I know you killed her entire family. Mrs. Harrison's eyes darkened for a moment. The air in the room seemed to freeze. But then, instead of denying or showing panic, she simply offered a faint, dangerous smile. Where's your proof? Her voice was light as a breeze, but every word was sharp as a knife. Liam said nothing, because at that moment, he had no proof. Mrs. Harrison approached, her eyes scrutinizing his every expression. Liam, do you think things are that simple? Do you think just finding a few clues can bring me down? If you truly want to fight me, you should understand one thing. She leaned down, whispering close to his ear, her voice so low that only he could hear. I'm not the only one you have to contend with. A shiver ran down Liam's spine. He took a step back, his eyes meeting her challenging gaze. A thought flashed in his mind. She wasn't acting alone. There was a force behind her, and perhaps they were even more dangerous than he could imagine. You have two choices, Mrs. Harrison said slowly, her eyes still fixed on him. 1. Continue to live as an obedient husband, forgetting everything you've seen. 2. She didn't finish, but Liam understood. If he continued to investigate, death would come for him. But he wasn't afraid. Liam looked directly into her eyes, each word forced through his gritted teeth. You've killed people. Do you think you can hide it forever? Mrs. Harrison merely shrugged. I don't need to hide. I just need you to be afraid. She turned, signaling the assassin to retreat. As she reached the door, she paused, turning back to look at him one last time. Liam, I hope you don't do anything you'll regret. The door closed. Liam stood silently in the darkness, his chest heaving with unquelled rage. Now he was certain of one thing. This fight wasn't just between him and her. Another force was pulling the strings in the shadows, and if he wanted to bring her down, he had to confront the one behind her first. Darkness enveloped the mansion. Since the failed assassination attempt, Liam hadn't slept soundly. He clearly felt every pair of eyes watching him, every faint footstep in the hallway, every soft breath whenever he passed a hidden corner in the house. It felt like he was prey in a deadly game, and the hunter wasn't just one. He knew Mrs. Harrison couldn't have hidden all her crimes by herself for so many years. There had to be someone behind her, someone who helped her manipulate everything. It was Martha. Liam entered the kitchen, his gaze gentle but thoughtful. Martha, I want to ask you something. Martha, who was wiping down the counter, paused. Yes, young master? What is it? Liam pulled up a chair and poured a cup of tea, placing it in front of her. You've worked here for a long time, haven't you? You must know a lot about this family. Martha looked at him, her eyes scrutinizing. What do you want to know? Liam sighed, skillfully weaving an emotion. Since Lily passed away, I've had this feeling that this family is hiding something. Not Mother, Mrs. Harrison. She's a strong woman, but sometimes I feel she carries some kind of fear. Martha remained silent, her wrinkled hands clutching the cloth tighter. Liam continued, Do you know anything about her past? About her family? About Lily's maternal grandfather? This question startled Martha. Why? Why do you ask about this? Liam lowered his head, his voice subdued. I want to understand the woman I'm living with. Martha hesitated for a long time, finally letting out a soft sigh. Her voice trembled faintly. You know, she isn't the old man's biological daughter. Liam's heart tightened. He clenched his hand beneath the table, his voice trying to remain calm. What do you mean? Martha looked up at him, her eyes filled with years of suppressed emotion. Mrs. Harrison was only adopted. This statement struck Liam like a bolt of lightning. He couldn't believe his ears. Mrs. Harrison wasn't Lily's maternal grandfather's biological daughter, but she had lived as a legal heir for so many years. If she's adopted, then where is Lily's maternal grandfather's biological child? Liam pressed. Martha shook her head. Her voice was slow but haunting. No one knows. Only one thing is certain. When Mrs. Harrison appeared, everyone in the LeBlanc family vanished. Vanished, he repeated, his voice somewhat choked. Martha nodded. Those close to the old man gradually left the family without a trace. Even the old man's biological daughter was never mentioned again, as if she had never existed. This truth sent shivers down Liam's spine. A woman with no blood relation to the family, yet she could easily seize everything. What had she done to replace the position of a legitimate heir? Was she simply an adopted child, or was there some dark conspiracy behind it? Liam knew he had stepped deep into the darkness of the past, but he couldn't stop. He had to find out more. He had to know how Lily's maternal grandfather's biological child had vanished, and more importantly, what Mrs. Harrison had done to rise to this position. Liam moved stealthily in the dark. The mansion's silence was terrifying, broken only by the ticking of a clock echoing in the night. This feeling was no different from his childhood nightmares he thought had been buried with the loss of his parents. But tonight, he had a clear intuition that these mysteries had never disappeared. They were merely hidden behind the cold doors of this mansion. Mrs. Harrison's study door was tightly shut. No one was allowed in without her permission. But tonight, she had taken sleeping pills, a habit he had observed for some time. This was his chance to find the truth. Taking a deep breath, Liam touched the doorknob. A faint click sounded as the door opened. The room was pitch black, but Liam had been accustomed to darkness for a long time. He didn't turn on the light, letting only the faint glow from the streetlights outside seep through the window, illuminating the large bookshelves and reflecting off the desk. He had to be quick. Liam moved toward the filing cabinet behind the desk, where Mrs. Harrison usually kept her most important belongings. He fumbled through each drawer, his eyes scanning quickly through stacks of documents, business contracts, financial reports, and letters. Nothing suspicious. Until he stumbled upon an old, faded folder, its cover yellowed with time. He opened it. On the very first page, a name jumped out at him: his parents. Their names appeared clearly on every page, linked to a tragic business deal. Holmes Limited Company. Director Thomas Miller and Smith. Status: bankrupt. All assets seized. Reason: losses due to erroneous investment contract with Victoria Chase. Victoria Chase. This name was like a cold knife slicing through Liam's mind. He didn't need to guess anymore. That was Mrs. Harrison's old name. A shiver ran down his spine. Everything swirled, connecting into a cruel and unbelievable truth. His parents had once been business partners with Lily's maternal grandfather's family, once reputable business owners with a solid standing in the market. But then, it was Mrs. Harrison, the woman he was now living with under the same roof, the woman he had just married, who had caused them to lose everything. It wasn't a normal business mistake, not an unforeseen loss, but a premeditated conspiracy. She had made his parents trust in a tempting deal, manipulating them step by step, driving them into a financial trap with no escape. When they invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, they thought it was a golden opportunity. But by the time they found out, it was too late. The company went bankrupt, the family lost all their assets, and the most painful thing was that his parents hadn't committed suicide, as the newspapers reported that year. They had been pushed to the brink, left with no other choice. Liam's hands trembled violently as he flipped through the documents. He tried to find a glimmer of hope, hoping this was just a coincidence, that perhaps things weren't as he thought. But every line, every number, every bright red stamp on the documents told him that his parents had died because of this woman. His entire body stiffened, as if all strength had drained from him. Images from the past flooded back like a haunting black and white film. He remembered the days when his family was happy, when his parents still held hands and laughed. He remembered his mother's radiant eyes as she spoke of the projects she had high hopes for, his father's warm hand gently patting his shoulder as he talked about future plans. All of it had been destroyed, And the culprit was the woman sleeping peacefully in this mansion, under the guise of his mother-in-law and now his wife. A shiver spread through Liam's body. He took a deep breath, but it did nothing to quell the fire raging within him. His breathing grew heavier, his eyes fixed on the papers in his hand as if he wanted to burn them with his gaze alone. He wanted to scream, to destroy everything, but he knew he couldn't yet. Liam gently closed his eyes, trying to control the surging rage, but his hands couldn't be controlled. They clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The hatred within him grew stronger. Liam sat in his room, his eyes staring into space. After last night, after the truth about his parents was exposed, he couldn't close his eyes. In his mind were thousands of unanswered questions. Why could Mrs. Harrison be so cruel? Why was she willing to trample on so many lives to reach the pinnacle of power? And if she could do that to his parents, what about Lily? A sudden pain tightened in his chest. Lily, the girl he had loved with all his heart. Did she know anything? A sense of unease urged him on. He had to find out, and there was no more logical place than Lily's room, a place no one had dared to touch since she passed. Everything remained as it was when she was alive. The room was still, quiet, and suffocating, as if time had stopped the day Lily died. Liam stood in that space, his eyes scanning the room. He had never set foot in here before after she passed, partly because of the immense pain, partly because he was afraid to confront the reality that Lily had truly vanished from this world. But now, as layers of secrets slowly unfolded, he knew he couldn't run anymore. His gaze stopped at the vanity, where a faint scent of the girl he once loved still lingered. A comb still held a few long strands of hair. The bottle of perfume she often used was still not empty. But all these things only made him ache more. He ran his hand across the surface of the table, his fingers touching something slightly protruding, a small key. His heart suddenly pounded faster. Officer then shifted her gaze to Liam. Her voice was low but full of menace. Liam, what have you done? He stepped forward, leaning down to look at her, his eyes cold as ice. I didn't do anything. I just helped you pay for what you've done. She let out a short, bitter laugh. So, you prepared everything? He nodded. You thought you had erased all traces, but you forgot one thing. In this world, no secret can be hidden forever. Mrs. Harrison stared at him, then slowly stood up. Everyone around them was still bewildered. No one dared to speak. Liam, her voice became low, almost a whisper. You think this is over? He looked directly into her eyes. No. I know there's still someone else behind you, but your chance is over. The police officer approached, pulling out handcuffs, his voice firm. Mrs. Harrison, you are arrested under court order. Let's go. A moment of silence stretched. Then she extended her hands, allowing them to tightly lock her wrists with the cold handcuffs. No resistance, no struggle, but her eyes still held a terrifying defiance. As she was led past Liam, she gently tilted her head and whispered a final sentence. You think you've won? He won't leave you alone. Liam didn't reply, just silently watched her shadow being led out of the mansion. Everyone at the party remained still, their faces pale. He knew what they were thinking. If someone like Mrs. Harrison could be overthrown, then who would be next? That night, he left the mansion, stepping into the cold night air. But as he reached the parking lot, a low voice spoke right behind him. Well done, but the game isn't over yet. Liam spun around. A man in a black suit stood directly in front of him, his eyes sharp and authoritative. Liam recognized him. He was the one who had met Mrs. Harrison earlier. So, the mastermind had finally revealed himself. The night air was cold, but Liam no longer felt it. Outside the mansion gates, having just witnessed Mrs. Harrison's downfall, he now faced the mysterious man he had long suspected, but never had the chance to confront directly. The man stood before him, poised, his eyes terrifyingly sharp, a truly powerful figure. You did very well, Liam. Liam didn't respond, his eyes cautiously fixed on the man. He knew, from this very moment, the game wasn't over. The man reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an old envelope, placing it in Liam's hand. "Open it. It's time you knew the truth." Liam's heart pounded, his hands clutching the envelope tightly. A vague but intense premonition shook him. He slowly opened the envelope, pulling out the paper inside. The old handwriting, the faded ink, was still clear enough to make his heart almost stop. Adoption papers. He froze. His name. Below it were the names of his adoptive parents, the ones he had always believed to be his biological parents. No. Liam shook his head, feeling the world spin. This can't be. The man before him remained chillingly calm. You are not their biological child. Your parents were merely tasked with raising you. Liam's breathing grew heavy. Why? Why didn't I know this? The man smirked, his eyes seemingly piercing into Liam's very mind. Don't you find it strange? Why were you the only one to survive when your family collapsed? Do you truly think it was an accident? Scattered pieces began to connect in Liam's mind. His parents. They weren't his biological parents. He swallowed hard, his eyes narrowing. Then who are my real parents? The man was silent for a long moment, then let out a slow breath. You are the last descendant of Lily's maternal grandfather's family. Liam was stunned. His entire world seemed to crumble before his eyes. He and Lily were blood relatives? The shock paralyzed every thought in his head. He took a step back, his body rigid. No, that's impossible. I don't believe it. But everything is clear. Lily was the daughter of his biological sister, and you are the only remaining child of his eldest son, the man said, each word like a knife piercing Liam's mind. You two are the true heirs of the family, destroyed by Mrs. Harrison's hand. Liam's entire body trembled. The past he had always sought the truth for, he had always wanted to know everything, was just a cruel game. So, he said bitterly, his voice choked, so she killed my entire family because of me? The man nodded. Because if you survived, you could reclaim everything. You could overthrow her. And now you have. Liam laughed, but it was a laugh filled with pain. But I couldn't save Lily. The man observed him for a moment, then slowly said, Now you have a choice, Liam. Liam looked up, his eyes full of anger. What choice? The man took a step forward, his eyes becoming sharper than ever. Your family was destroyed. Your maternal grandfather's assets rightfully belong to you. But Mrs. Harrison didn't act alone. There's someone else behind her who helped her hide her crimes. If you want justice, you must continue this fight. Liam clenched his hands, his nails digging into his skin, but he felt no pain. Who? Who is behind all of this? The man smirked faintly, his eyes becoming cold. You don't think Mrs. Harrison alone could have hidden everything for all these years, do you? There's a massive financial corporation behind her. They manipulated all of Lily's maternal grandfather's assets, hid the murders, made everything vanish into the shadows. He paused for a moment, then continued, and now they have their eyes on you. Liam felt a chill run down his spine. He thought he had ended everything, but it turned out the prologue had just begun. You have two choices, the man said, his voice lowering. 1. Disappear, forget everything, live as a lucky survivor. Or continue to be part of a bigger game and confront the true masterminds behind the scenes. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes slowly becoming resolute. He was no longer weak, no longer a puppet in this game. He wouldn't stop. I won't run away, his voice was firm. I want to know who destroyed my family, and I want to end it all. The man smiled, his eyes showing a hint of approval. Good. He turned away, but before leaving, he spoke one last sentence. Welcome to the real fight, Liam. I believe that life is sometimes a cruel game of chess, where the strong are not always the good, and the weak are not always to be pitied. Liam's story is proof of that, a gentle man who lost his wife in pain, only to discover that his entire life was part of a larger conspiracy. He not only lost the one he loved, but also realized that his past and identity were buried by greedy and cruel individuals. What I learned from this story is that the truth can be hidden, but it never disappears. Those who commit crimes can conceal them in the shadows, but ultimately, the light of justice will always find a way to uncover every secret. Liam suffered and lost, but he didn't choose to back down. He didn't let himself remain a victim, but stood up to face the truth, exposing those behind the tragedy of his life. And I believe that is the most important lesson of this story. In life, there will be times when you feel pushed to the brink, deceived, betrayed by the people you once trusted most. But never let the darkness swallow you whole. The truth will always exist. Justice may come late, but it will come. The important thing is whether you have the courage to pursue it. Liam not only sought revenge for his family and brought the wicked to light, but also found himself again. But ironically, just when he thought everything was over, he realized the real battle had just begun. Such is life. When you think you've understood everything, the truth once again leaves you stunned. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe to the Soulful Narratives YouTube channel to continue following thrilling, meaningful, and emotional stories like this one. Don't forget to leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts on the story and what you think Liam will do next if the story continues. Do you think he will win, or will the shadowy forces defeat him? I eagerly await your thoughts. Thank you for following along. Let's spread meaningful stories together. Erase all traces and push those who stood in her way into eternal darkness. And to bring her down, he needed to know who that person was. That night, Liam decided to follow Mrs. Harrison. He stood silently on the second-floor balcony, watching her descend the stairs, her demeanor relaxed but full of calculation. A luxurious black car Dao San Truoc Song beat Thursday Doi Ba Ta Byuk Veo. Without hesitation, he quickly grabbed his car keys and followed from a distance. After more than half an hour of driving, Mrs. Harrison stopped in front of a tall, opulent building, brightly lit in the city. Liam hid in the distance, watching her enter through the large glass doors, where a middle-aged man with a powerful demeanor was waiting. The man's eyes gleamed with a sharp, calm, and somewhat terrifying intensity. They exchanged words, then stepped into the elevator together, vanishing from his sight. His intuition told him that man was the force behind her. Liam clenched his fist. He had to find out. But as he stepped out of his car, a cold shiver ran down his spine. He felt someone watching him. He glanced sideways. A shadowy figure flickered in the distance, not one, but two. He cursed under his breath. They had discovered him. Without hesitation, he turned and walked away, trying to appear normal, but as soon as he turned into a narrow alley nearby, the footsteps behind him quickened. They were chasing him. He couldn't run back to his car. That would be a death trap. He ran faster, turning into a narrow passage, his footsteps echoing on the wet ground. Ahead was a dead end. He spun around. Two strangers blocked the alley entrance. One of them smirked, their voice low and resonant in the dark night. Too much curiosity is not good, Liam. Liam clenched his fists. Who are you? The other person chuckled faintly, but his eyes held no amusement. You don't need to know. What you need to do is stop before it's too late. Otherwise, he tilted his head. You'll end up like Lily. Just those words were enough to make every nerve in Liam's body stretch to its limit. The rage within him erupted like wildfire. He lao toi tung mot ku dam tang veo mat jie dan ong dang dung on not. The man was caught off guard, staggering back, but the second one quickly pulled out a knife, slashing a cut across Liam's arm. The pain stung, but Liam didn't stop. He kicked the knife wielder hard in the leg, causing him to lose balance. Without giving them a chance to retaliate, he spun and ran straight toward the main road, the footsteps of his pursuers close behind. He ran across a street, plunging into the crowd of pedestrians. They couldn't do anything to him here. Gritting his teeth, Enduring the pain, he continued walking, blending into the flow of people, knowing he had just narrowly escaped death. But he no longer had time. They had their eyes on him. They wanted to kill him. The man's words from earlier echoed in his mind, "Stop before it's too late." That meant if he continued, they wouldn't just watch, they would act. Liam looked down at his hand, where blood from the wound was still oozing, but he felt no pain. He only felt hatred. Who was he? The man who had met Mrs. Harrison was who? And why was she so afraid of him? He needed answers, and he knew that to bring Mrs. Harrison down, he had to confront the one behind her first. Liam knew he couldn't continue to be passive. If he kept waiting, Mrs. Harrison would sooner or later find a way to kill him. She had sent people to follow him, ordered an assassination, but all had failed. Now was the time for him to act first. To bring her down, he needed the most important thing: proof. Not just suspicions or Lily's diary, but a confession from her own mouth. He thought all night, unable to directly force her to confess. She wasn't foolish. He needed to make her make a mistake herself. And then a plan flashed in his mind. Make her lose control, make her confess her crimes. The next day, Liam deliberately appeared in the dining room. When Mrs. Harrison was having breakfast, Liam's face remained calm, but his voice was full of hidden meaning. "Lately, I've been thinking a lot about Lily, about things from the past," he said, sitting down opposite her. He poured himself a cup of tea, intently watching her reaction. Mrs. Harrison maintained a faint smile, but Liam clearly saw her hand briefly pause on the porcelain cup. The past? What's so worth thinking about? He shrugged. "I've realized there are too many secrets I never noticed. For example, the strange disappearance of Lily's maternal grandparents' family. Don't you think so?" She set her teacup down, her eyes darkening slightly. "What are you trying to say, Liam?" Liam leaned back in his chair, deliberately sighing as if deep in thought. "Oh, nothing. I just wonder if someone intentionally hid the truth." A sharp glint flashed in her eyes. Clearly, his words were poking at her deepest fears, but she still tried to remain calm. "You're thinking too much. Don't forget, I've been Lily's mother for all these years. If anything happened, do you think I wouldn't know?" Liam gave a faint smile. "Oh, really? Because I heard some interesting things about you not being Lily's biological mother." The spoon in Mrs. Harrison's hand trembled slightly, but only for a moment. She regained her composure. "Who told you that?" Liam tilted his head, as if enjoying the conversation. "No one. I just happened to find Lily's diary." Mrs. Harrison's eyes suddenly darkened. "Her diary?" "Yes, the diary Lily left before she died. You know, Lily suspected you for a long time. She knew you weren't her biological mother. She knew what you did to her birth family." A deathly silence filled the room. Mrs. Harrison gripped the napkin in her hand tightly, her eyes narrowing, but she said nothing. Liam knew the trap was slowly closing. He decided to push harder. "Not only that, I also know something else. My birth parents, they were once business partners with Lily's maternal grandfather. But then they lost everything, went bankrupt, were driven to despair. And who benefited the most from that? It was you, wasn't it?" Mrs. Harrison's hand on the table trembled slightly. Then, as if realizing her own wavering, she looked up, her eyes sharp as knives. "Are you accusing me, Liam?" Liam didn't answer immediately. He picked up his teacup, took a sip, then slowly said, "No, I'm not accusing you. I just want to know what you did to achieve this position." The silence stretched again. The air in the room seemed to freeze, but this time, Liam clearly noticed the tension on her face. This was when he needed to push her to her breaking point. He took his phone out of his pocket and gently placed it on the table. "You know, some criminals think they can hide forever. But then, one day, they accidentally admit everything," he said slowly, looking directly at Mrs. Harrison. Her eyes gleamed with danger. "You think I'll fall for your trap?" Liam smiled faintly, not denying it. The silence between them lingered until Mrs. Harrison leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping, full of menace. "Liam, you know too much." He kept his expression unchanged, but inside, he breathed a silent sigh of relief. The trap had sprung. She had admitted it, not directly, but enough to prove she had something to hide. Liam lightly touched his phone. It was all recorded. But just then, Mrs. Harrison suddenly stood up. "The game is over, Liam." The room door burst open. Two unfamiliar men walked in. Liam immediately recognized them as the ones who had attacked him before. He quickly grabbed his phone, but one of them lunged, grabbing his wrist and twisting hard. The phone fell to the floor. In the lavish mansion, the clinking of glasses mingled with joyful laughter. The family party was as extravagant as always, but tonight, the atmosphere felt a little different. Powerful guests from high society were present in full force, all showing respect to Mrs. Harrison, the woman who had built a massive financial empire, an untouchable figure for years. But they had no idea that tonight, her dynasty would crumble. Liam walked in, impeccably dressed in a black suit, a faint smile on his lips, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. He was no longer Mrs. Harrison's docile, long-suffering son-in-law. He was here to witness her end. Mrs. Harrison sat at the center, her face still maintaining a calm, authoritative demeanor. When she saw Liam, she merely smiled faintly. "Finally, you've arrived." He slowly approached her, pouring himself a glass of wine, his eyes never leaving her. "Of course. How could I miss a special evening like this?" She tilted her head, her voice somewhat sarcastic. "You still haven't given up, Liam?" Liam took a sip of wine and gave a faint smile. "I've never considered giving up." Mrs. Harrison chuckled faintly. "You think you can fight me?" "Liam, haven't you realized that I'm not someone you can easily defeat?" He set his wine glass down on the table, his eyes sharp. "You're right, I can't defeat you. But someone else can." The very next second, a series of footsteps echoed from outside the door. The mansion doors burst open. A group of police officers in uniform, guns in hand, quickly stormed in. Strong, decisive shouts rang out. "Police! Everyone, stay in your positions." "Mrs. Harrison, you're under arrest for murder, financial manipulation, and a series of other charges. You have the right to remain silent." The atmosphere at the party suddenly became chaotic. Whispers of fear spread rapidly through the crowd. The powerful guests who had admired her moments before now timidly retreated, as if afraid of being implicated. Some looked at Mrs. Harrison with horror, as if they had just realized her true nature. Mrs. Harrison remained seated, no panic whatsoever on her face, but Liam could clearly see her hands subtly clenching the armrests of the chair. Slowly, she looked up at the leading police.
Today's story comes to an end. If you found it interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the upcoming stories. See you again in the next storytelling journey.